Hey folks, in today's video, we'll be going over how to make a boxcar storage shed in N-Scale. This is part of my new series, Finish a Project Friday. This project is a common sight across America. Boxcars are often detrucked and used as storage by railroads. As you can see in the image, most have a small platform leading up to the door. To make this, you're going to need N-Scale lumber. I made mine out of small dowels that I bought from the dollar store and carved them to their correct size. While you could probably buy this, I chose to make it myself just because the price was what I had at the time. As a quick note, the boards don't need to be exact, they just need to be close. Next, you'll need concrete blocks to rest the boxcar on. To do this, simply cut pieces of sheet styrene that are roughly the same size to simulate concrete block. I needed 6 pieces to get the car up to an adequate height. It doesn't need to be very high off the ground. Next, you'll need a flush base with which to set the car on. To do this, simply remove the small bolsters where the trucks would normally mount. I used rail clippers for this, file it smooth, and simply stack the pieces on top. This doesn't need to be exact, but this is probably the strongest part of the car, and this is likely the best place and strongest place to place concrete block under. As I said before, the car doesn't need to be high off the ground. It just needs to be slightly elevated. Next, we'll work on making the wooden platform next. Simply take the lumber you cut earlier and arrange it in a square shape. It's a very basic construction, and I just use a little bit of super glue for this. After you've made the square shape, simply lay boards across it. Once that's done, file it flat with either a small metal or piece of sandpaper. Next up is weathering the wood. To do this, use an assortment of grays and blacks. Black colors typically go towards the edges of the wood, and grays typically go towards the top. Wherever people walk, the wood is lighter due to the constant friction. Black parts of the wood they're darker because either it's stained with tar or it's simply because it's rotting. This is likely unstained because the railroad is going to be very cheap and they're not going to bother making a small wooden structure like that last very long. Use a Q-tip to wipe away any excess color and restore some of the original wood color to simulate replaced boards or just newer section or worn boards. Here's a little test fit. I also added a gooseneck light and a small sign designating this car's railroad property. Next, we're going to color the styrene sheets just a gray color. Any gray will do, just to simulate concrete. I'm using a very light gray. It almost looks white when I'm done. You could honestly probably forgo this step, but it just looks a little better. Next comes the actual weathering of the car. You can go as heavy with this as you'd like because this car's probably been sitting out in the elements for a long period of time unpainted and unprotected. I'm going a little lighter than I probably should be considering the age, really because I'm considering the age of the car and the age of my layout, which is in the mid-60s, and this is a car that was last run on the rails in the 50s, so it's in good condition. I like doing heavy rust washes and just off browns, just to simulate ghost lettering, as if the lettering is slowly fading away. It also helps if you have a really cheap, crappy car like the one I have, which is an old Bachmann from the mid-90s, if the lettering isn't entirely opaque. It's a very good use of a very old car, because it looks like ghost lettering already. Another thing I use a lot of is Saddle Brown by Vallejo. I am not saying you need to buy a specific color, but it matches almost every oxide red I've ever seen on boxcars, and it makes very good ghost lettering. And when I'm done, I forgot to show this step, but I just pretty much took a large flat brush and wiped it over the larger letters of the Western Pacific logo and faded them out to the point where you could barely see them. While you don't want to go and cover them up entirely, it does look very good when they're covered up slightly. It really does give a very good impression of age and extreme weathering. My general philosophy for weathering cars is to not use any one specific color, because rust is never the same color. Simply use darker and lighter washes interchangeably, and honestly mix them together midway through. I also use a lot of grays in with this because it just gives a sometimes lighter, sometimes darker impression, and it just overall looks a lot better when your colors look realistic but are not completely consistent across the entire car. Don't use one wash for an entire car, use a few, and you don't necessarily need to make large amounts of them unless you're weathering a lot of the same car, which most people aren't. Here you can see the boxcar after it's been weathered and detailed. Obviously I did a little extra off camera, but it looks pretty good. I also installed a um, light up gooseneck lamp here I got while I was on sale. The uh, the platform itself is pretty much unchanged. The original gooseneck is obviously still here, which I just salvaged from some old kit, but it's not. I honestly prefer how this one looks, but if I ever do a light up on the layout, I would like to have that. I've also prepared some details in the form of, again, some random bits I found from an old kit, including this old barrel, old crush barrel, and an old Coke machine. Not entirely sure how, if I weather that, it might fit, but that one I'm really just adding because it's a little fun detail that I've had kicking around for over a couple years now, and I finally found it, so I might as well use it. But that should sum up all the detailing and weathering this needs, and I will now be placing this on the layout. This is going to be where the storage box car is placed. As you can see, it's right outside the single main yard of my layout. It's going to be a pretty derelict car, and it's probably half buried in gravel here. I'll do that off camera probably, but yeah, I think I'm gonna call this project finished. Thank you for watching.